Okay, the recording has begun.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's call this meeting to order.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
And introductions. My name is James Mack from Shelburne PSAP. I'll let each one of you go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Ron Kumetz, Chief of the Elberg Fire Department.
And Michael Wright, Chief of Calix Ambulance in St. Johnsbury.
Thank you, everyone. And Televate has 3 members online today: Elizabeth Herring, Rick Burke, and myself, Dominic Arcuri.
And we have an agenda. Did everybody get a copy of what the agenda was? Should have been in one of the emails.
Yes.
Yes, and it's being displayed right now.
Are there any changes to the minutes, or excuse me, the agenda? No changes, then it's approved as it was typed. We have no minutes, so we'll move on to the objectives.
All right. Thank you, Jim. And I'll take over from here. I have a presentation prepared to go through the items for Tier 2, which is the technology and shared system-based regionalization. And just for a reminder, that's section 3.3 of the system design plan document that was developed by MCP and has been, of course, distributed and posted on the task force website. So that's who we are today. This is our first meeting for Tier 2. Just a reminder of the schedule and a reminder for Jim and Ron, I guess, since you're also participating in Tier 3, that this is Tier 2. We have 3 working group meetings kind of running concurrently right now: Tier 2, Tier 3, and then the governance working group. And we are scheduled to proceed until around mid-August. Hopefully we'll have, or until as necessary, I guess I should say, hopefully we'll have some priorities and preliminary recommendations to pass on to the full task force by that time. A breakdown, if you will, of Tier 2, which again is addressing technology and shared systems. The goal of this working group is to determine the priorities and potential recommendations related to these areas to present to the full task force for consideration. And the areas are listed underneath there in the bullets. It's a little bit small. Can everyone read those?
Yes.
All right, great. And these are the specific areas that are addressed in the system plan document that MCP provided. So that's how we are addressing those. And we have each of these addressed in the PowerPoint. Today, we'll address these by first, there's a description of key insights and findings from the report. We'll address those before each item, and then each item will have some suggestions of various options for improvement in those areas. And we'd like to discuss each of those for each of the items. Now, obviously, there's a lot of items here, at least about a dozen or so. We don't expect to get through all of these in our hour-and-a-half meeting today. If we get through the big ones, I see here, I guess a little bit of preview. Certainly the CAD, there's several related to CAD and RMS. That's one of the big ones, I think, in my opinion, coming out of this discussion, as well as the LMR, which is be addressed later. So if we got through the CAD and RMS discussion today, I think we'd be in pretty good shape. If we get further than that, great. But let's see how far we can go.
Hey, Tom, before you leave that slide, I just want to make a comment.
So this is our kickoff meeting, and I'm really looking forward to working with this working group on this tier. There's a lot of important items on this, and what approach that you take and that we facilitate along the way is really going to happen as it happens. And I want to make sure that we have open dialogue and ask questions and comments for those. I mean, I know Jim and Ron have participated in a couple of sessions so far. And Michael, I know you were on one of the original sessions that we kind of table for later involvement. So, the goal here really is just to discuss these items from your perspective, and what is being presented are the recommendations from the MC report. And so those recommendations are MCP's recommendations, and we're going to go through the various options for each of these particular items here identified. But in the end, what we want to document are your respective of thoughts and opinions. And so we're taking copious notes, and we'll also capture action items, and we'll publish those action items for the group's consideration and support. And I'm looking forward to a productive session. So thanks for engaging us.
Thanks, Rick. And one other point I'd like to make is, as Rick pointed out, there are a number of options presented by MCP. If we have or you have a different option that you think is worthy of consideration, please put that forward as well, and we can discuss that. So I mentioned each of the areas addresses some key insights and trends as MCP documents them based on their meetings. Of course, they met with every dispatch center throughout the state and had interviews with various people. And also, of course, there were the town hall meetings and others that many of you participated in. So these are the key insights and trends, and these address, I believe, 3 of the line items related to CAD. So please, take a few minutes and read through these. These are mostly, I'll go through, I guess, kind of quickly, but these are mostly related to CAD and the findings. A lot of it, of course, relates to Valcor. MCP notes that the Annie and Alley data is not transferred via the CAD system today. And there's been some, expressions of concerns with the current CAD system in terms of its support for fire and EMS dispatching. And we heard a lot about that, and we've had quite a bit of discussion throughout the process here. Some stakeholders identified that the CAD system has an automatic refresh that makes it difficult to enter data and difficult to deal with.
Don, if I may ask a question of the working group. So,
yeah.
What are your thoughts on the need for Annie and Alley data coming through with the request for dispatch?
I can answer, kind of take a step back.
Yeah.
When we were using a previous CAD system, we were able to receive the Annie and Alley from 911, which helped us speed up the process of putting that call into the system and getting it out to our responders.
Right.
So,
And the only time we had to deal with it was when the cell caller wasn't in the location where the incident was. But otherwise, the information flowed through much faster.
so I think that at some point we need to draw a line here in being so generous as to call Valcor a CAD system. it's a law enforcement information system, and it doesn't have a lot of the functionality that a CAD system needs to have. And so I think the generosity involved in calling it a CAD system is just way beyond my capabilities in the area of generosity.
I'll agree with Ron on that.
I would totally agree on that. And
And I think that we're doing ourselves a disservice if we present things to legislature where we even acknowledge the fact that, you know, Valcor thinks they're a CAD system or sold it as a CAD system, or I don't know. But for us to even acknowledge that, you know, we think or you know, that it's a CAD system, it reflects poorly on our credibility.
I would agree. And they also have said since this all started that when they were hearing some negative feedback, they were saying, oh, well, we didn't know you wanted those features and we could integrate those features, but all the features are, you know, not, again, making it a robust CAD system. It's just trying to add on these components. We need a robust CAD system. We're functioning in 1932 technology across the state. You know, we're relying on a conference call, you know, to a secondary PSAP. There's a lot. I mean, I've QA'd so many calls that there's been delays and lost information because of what we just said. We don't have the alley anymore. I mean, back when I started 30 years ago, VSP that was up in Derby was sending a fax alley on a fax machine to our local dispatcher. And after the call, right, they could look back and say, oh yeah, it's 32 Summer Street or whatever. Now we don't have that integration. And to go forward, we want that robust CAD system. There's no reason today that when that call comes in at Williston, that the CAD system is pushing it out to every responder when they select, you know, where the call's going. It should be popping up on my phone on a I am responding or whatever other system people are using or whatever we decide as a state. That the technology is there that should be coming up on every ambulance, every fire truck, everybody's phone immediately. We should be even getting that before we're even toned. It's kind of like a pre-alert where we could be getting it on our phones, and we know that the tones are coming shortly. Gets us a chance to get out the door. And then again, having that information readily in all the responders, all the dispatch centers in real time is truly what we need. And it needs to be for all public safety. It needs to be for law enforcement, for fire, for EMS, to make it, you know, work for everybody.
All right. Well, thank you all for that. So certainly one thing we want to document there is we want to make clear in our discussions with the legislature that Valcor is not seen as a full-featured CAD system, not even really seen as a CAD system, certainly for some of the respondents. So that's important. And can you help me understand if I'm correct? The majority or the PSAPs who are receiving the 911 calls, they don't typically use any CAD, correct? So there's in order to be able to transfer that data, if there was a common CAD system, that would obviously facilitate that. But if the call taker currently is not entering data into a CAD system in most cases, is that correct?
Hartford it uses Mobile Flex, so they are able to receive the 911 data and then push it out.
Okay, because Hartford does use a different, they do not use Valcor, they use a CAD system.
That's correct.
That's one of that's the second to the last bullet here under the observation is that other CAD, quote unquote, CAD systems are being used.
Yeah, and I think some places are using, like our system does use Valcor. However, the from 911, the initial information that's coming in from the caller, from the call taker,
Right.
is not coming across in that same system. So essentially what our dispatcher is doing is getting that conference call. They're having to write down on a friggin' yellow sticky note information. Some dispatchers probably a little bit better with trying to enter it real time in Valcor, but in most cases, our cards are created in Velcor after the call. So there's no, like I said, there's no integration across the CAD system. It's not like when the call comes over and they pick up the phone, it's instantly right up there on the screen with the address and the caller and the timestamps. We just recently, this past week, we had a conversation at the Vermont advisory board that's doing the whole other working with Cambridge, the whole other thing that we're doing, kind of dispatch. They're doing the statewide EMS thing, and I was blown away that almost all agencies across the state do not even know when the time the 911 call comes in. That's an important time. That is actually something that we log into our EMS documentation. What time was the call received from the Williston agent? And then what time was the actual call dispatch? And then obviously what time we're responding, so on and so forth.
Right.
Most agencies and what the Vermont Advisory Board wanted to know is, are there system delays? But they can't generate any of these reports or information because we don't have a statewide CAD system, and most agencies aren't even capturing this information. And that was kind of eye-opening to me that, looking at that from multiple angles, even from a legal angle, that we can't even say on a EMS chart across the state when a 911 call actually came in and how long did it take to actually get the call out to EMS responders. And that a statewide CAD system would fix that tomorrow. And obviously the state would have full access to that system to be able to pull that information.
Hey, and Michael,
and is that because Michael, because in most cases, other than the exception Jim mentioned, the 911 caller is not entering that data into an
Yes.
Electronic system?
Correct.
Yeah, I take a call for, say, the Cambridge area or wherever else in the state other than my own call taking area. I've got to gather the information from the caller on where that call is, what it is, so forth. Then I can make the decision on where I need to transfer it. And in his case, it's a car accident. He may be the second or third person I transfer the call to.
Right.
And it's crazy to think that we can have any kind of a legitimate QA process if this information isn't being recorded.
Right.
Well, the time of the call is recorded by 911, but you don't get that information.
Yeah, right.
The time of that, I transfer it. That's here again. That's all in the 911 system, but you don't, as a responder, you don't actually get when that 911 call was received by me. But that data is out there. It's just in a completely different system.
Right.
And
exactly.
It should be transferred along. Here's the time of the call that was actually received. Your dispatcher received it at this point, initiated dispatch at that point, so on.
Right.
And there would be,
I'm sure a separate. I'm sorry, Michael. Just to confirm, they're just using a separate call handling system, not connected to any CAD.
It's not connected to Valcor. I believe, if
Right.
I remember correctly, Hartford does receive the anti-alley information at the time of call.
I'm sorry, Michael, I interrupted
No,
you.
I was just going to say, and then obviously there's a lot of, I'm sure, a lot of errors within those times because, again, it just begs for errors in all the data that's coming through. Instead of real systems, as you guys know, the whole CAD system is grabbing those times, and then those times are also integrated in the other system. So most states, when the EMS opens up, let's say, their siren report or their EMS documentation system or fire documentation system, the times then come in from that CAD system and they're 100% accurate all the time versus, trying to gather all these other times from dispatch centers or guests or what. I mean, there's people out there that are just collecting or documenting their own times rather than dispatch giving them their own times. And that's crazy to me as well.
So, so I have a question. I recall a couple of conversations with Barb where she indicated that E911 can provide the dispatch centers with the anti-alley. And
Right.
I don't know, are any of you receiving that, and if so, is that a reasonable way to receive it?
Hartford is the only center that's receiving it into their CAD system. Nobody's that I'm aware of is receiving it out local.
So, Jim, can I ask a question? So,
yeah,
am I to assume that one of the issues is simply that the software that you're using is Valcor, and Valcor simply has no means of receiving that information?
Well, I think they could build the linkage easy enough. I'm sure they could.
Well, that's true, but I mean,
I think the issue comes down to, even if I receive that information from 911, Valcor has a problem because it's not geocoded its database for addressing.
Right. I mean, I've heard these kind of things before. It's like, well, we could add this to Valcor, we could add that to Valcor, and if I buy, a Toyota Prius and I tell them I want to carry sheets of plywood, they could sell me a trailer. It's like there are systems out there that have all this functionality that are tested, so that we don't have to be the guinea pigs. So I just can't get on board with that whole thought process.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to what you said originally, Ron, when the state unfortunately looked at this system. It was I think it was a law enforcement officer that actually designed this system. It was created in a law enforcement environment. And for whatever reason, the state did not think about, well, we do have other responders in public safety that need this information.
Right.
And so it's built around law enforcement. And, yes, it might meet their needs, although I've even talked to law enforcement that absolutely hates Velcor in comparison to the old Spillman. So I don't think there's really too many people out there other than the ones that are trying to sell this to the state that like Velcor and the features.
So I've got a follow-up question, and I want to document it as an action item. Based on what you said, Jim, that only Hartford is receiving the anti-alley data. Would it be beneficial if all dispatch centers receive that information? However, I'm not sure how it's packaged and delivered, but since Barb says that it could be delivered if requested,
Yes.
I don't know if people know that they could request it. I don't know if the format that it's provided in is useful. And if so, would it be a benefit to have it done? And the reason I'm asking this and want to document as an action item to look deeper into it is because clearly we need a CAD, but a new CAD is still, I don't know, 12, 24 months out. So
I agree. It would be nice to receive the information. There's several issues with Valcor. When I received in Spillman or Flex Mobile, whatever you want to call it now, when I used to receive that data, it would come in, it would populate in the address field. It would know who my police, fire, and EMS is for that address. Valcor, I need to know before I generate the call which police, fire, EMS agency I need to send. So there's a problem here in how Valcor handles information and what steps.
Right.
So even if I received
I think that's this point that's shown there. Right.
Yes. So even if I receive it now, I can't really generate my incident easily. I know they're working on some changes, and I'm not even going to go down that road with what Valcor is trying to do. But a CAD system will receive the data, will know exactly who my primary responders are, and I can pull up response lists based off of that address. Valcor can't do any of that at this point in time.
All right, so I'm gonna document an action item. I want to, so and I'll take, Toby will take the lead on it. But I want to, have a little bit more conversation with Barb about the request process, what data is provided, and how it's provided, and how it could be consumed, and bring it back to the group to share with you. We lost Ron. Ron just left the building.
Oh, okay. Ouch.
Yeah, and I think Rick, it goes back to Barb or the team there might be able to send it, but again, sending it and how it's received is not integration, as James just said. What we're looking for is, again, an integrated system, which is what there shouldn't be. We're in almost 2026. We should have a system that, it's automated at this point. I mean, we got, computer generated voices that are dispatching calls these days. I mean, we're back to like not even getting an alley. It's crazy.
I don't think there's any question that, I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth, but we're going to look at the recommendations that in the next slides that MCP put together. But clearly a CAD is required. I'm looking at how do we bridge and provide information between now and the future CAD, because again, it's still whether or not legislature supports it. I think this is going to be a hard one for them to not support, and for us to pursue this, and that'll require a variety of different decision making and a committee to help put it together and so forth and so on. But I also want to see what we could address between now and then. What improvements, enhancements are required so that we can document them to see if Valcor, could provide them, and so that's really why I'm asking these questions.
And my only concern with that is the state going, well, you're kind of getting this information, so we'll tweak this a little bit, and kind of cobble job our way through the process rather than make a commitment that we need a CAD system, period. And we got to figure out a way to get the funding or whatever is needed to get a CAD system. That's my only concern with that, because I could see the state powers to be saying, oh, well, we can send you this alley now. Does that work? Does that meet the needs? And it might help a little bit, but it's again not getting us to where we ultimately really need to be.
Right. And the other part of this is that there's a laundry list of things that we need in addition to the alley, and just getting us the alley doesn't help. On the fire side, we need mutual aid plans being able to be stored and all that other kind of stuff. So adding that stuff to Valcor, sure, I write software. It could be done. You could do anything you want in software. But should we invest in that? I don't think so.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, I believe the state contract with Valcor expires the end of next year, the end of 26. So there will have to be either hopefully an RFP on the street for a new CAD system, or there will have to be some changes made following that expiration. All right, great discussion there. Anything further before we go on to the specific items and options? Okay, I'll move on. And there's three of them related to CAD, and then a fourth on RMS, which I was hoping we could address today. So this one, I'll blow this up because this is awful small.
Thank you.
So this one addresses the core data transfer. I think the next one kind of addresses a CAD to CAD interface or our new CAD. So these next two might be closely related. This one addresses core data transfer. MCP has identified three options. Option one would be to provide the Annie and Alley data integration working with each CAD vendor to set up their system to receive the input to begin a call for service. So that recognizes that there's other CAD systems certainly in use, although more limited than Valcor, but other CAD systems in use both within the state and also outside the state with
I think some of the one or more of the New Hampshire agencies also receives the alley information.
Okay, all right. Option two is to implement a CAD to CAD interface with the PSAPs continuing to transfer the caller to the dispatch center. And then option three is also implement a CAD to CAD interface, but having the PSAPs handle all call intake and having a policy that the callers are not being transferred. So all of the data would then be sent to the dispatch centers through the CAD to CAD interface. And I don't know if we want to have specific discussion on this right now or look at the next one. So let me go ahead because I think they're tied together. The next item that was identified was essential public safety discipline functionality. So this is recognizing the shortcomings that we have currently. Option one is to expand participation in the existing Valcor user group to develop and implement feature and functionality, broader feature and functionality, I guess is how I read that. Option two is to develop and implement essential functionality for fire and EMS dispatching with existing CAD systems. And then option three would be develop and issue an RFP for statewide CAD that supports all public safety disciplines. Any discussion on these options, and then also on the previous one? Now, the previous one may be more of what Rick was trying to get at in terms of a near-term solution or a stopgap before we, address this maybe more long-term solution.
Well, I understand. I understand the wanting to try and fix the problem as soon as possible. The problem is, I think there's too many issues with Valcor to fix the problem at this point. Until they get a number of their so-called upgrades up and actually running consistently, I'm not sure if that one would work even that well with Valcor.
When you say that one, do you mean some of the options here for this core data transfer?
Yeah, doing the transfer of the alley information up front. I don't know if that's going to be workable with how Valcor is configured today.
Okay, and Jim, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you say here for this particular item, the preferred approach would be option three to have statewide? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would prefer option three, or something along the lines of option three, either a statewide CAD system RFP. But I also recognize that I've got I know there's two agencies out, or two dispatch areas, Hartford and Burlington. Hartford's using Flex Mobile, which they love it. I happen to love the Flex product. I haven't seen the Tyler, which is being used in Burlington, and I believe they're happy with how that's behaving up there. But whatever system we have needs to be able to communicate with more than just one system.
So I've got a couple of questions that I guess Jim is probably the person to answer. So the first question I have is there, what software are the state call takers using? Are they just entering things into Valcor?
Yes.
Okay, and so is there a solution out there in the world of CAD products which would allow them, any call taker to be taking a call and then having that record, the whole entire thing, the NELE, whatever, all that stuff, simply somehow transferred over to a dispatcher in another facility in a very seamless way?
Yeah, it's called the
Yes.
statewide CAD system.
Yeah, I mean, like communications is my deal, and I'm vaguely familiar with CAD, but
in reality, Valcor can do that. I just don't have the privileges to add a call for Lindenville or Hartford or whatever. So there is part of the problem on me taking a call and being able to transfer it to you in Valcor. Right now I don't have that privilege. If I did have that privilege, then I have to rely on the fact that I have to figure out which ambulance I need to add the call for in the current system. Whereas in, say, Flex or Tyler, those systems know who the primary police, fire, and EMS is. I don't have to think of that. The system thinks of it for me based on that address.
Well, and then based on the fact that I think we're all on the same page, that to have redundancy and the ability to, if your facility, I don't know, you're next to the train tracks, maybe some kind of hazmat goes off the rails and you have to evacuate. If we want to switch your calls over to somewhere else with all the stuff, we need to have a seamless, uniform integrated CAD system statewide to do stuff like that. And I can't get on board for the idea that we should be pumping more money into the development of Valcor when there are existing products out there that, other jurisdictions are super happy with. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And I don't disagree with you on that. To answer your original question was, what do I use in Williston or Shelburne or St. Albans? It's Valcor. Can I theoretically add a call for VSP New Haven? Yes. I just don't have the permissions today, but that can be easily changed tomorrow. But the problem for me is in the actual call taking phase. I've got an address. I know I need the police. Well, what damn police do I pick from? Which police department am I assigning that call to? So it pops up on your screen at your agency. I have to start thinking about that while I'm still taking the call from the caller.
Right, understood.
So would it be safe?
Let me ask.
Well,
I'm sorry.
let's have a question.
Go ahead, Rick.
Would it be safe to say that all three of you agree that option 3 here, develop and issue a request for proposal for a statewide CAD system that supports all public safety disciplines, is the right approach for us to consider and recommend?
Yes,
It is
yes,
for
and
me.
yes.
You mean you couldn't tell by my previously statements?
Yeah, of course. I just want it to be I just want it to be documented. So, but now can I ask a follow-up question? Well, how would we, I mean, obviously there was a some kind of committee or group, working group that was put together to do that. How should we, what's your strategy for doing this to ensure that the right disciplines are involved in defining the requirements for this CAD?
You need dispatchers who actually add calls into the system, who know how much of a pain in the backside it can be with Valcor or any other system for that matter, to be there to say this system looks good, this system doesn't look good. You need fire and EMS at that table because they've always been excluded.
And I think
Right.
that, I mean, I have a real big, thing when I'm looking to buy something to go and ask people who have needs similar to mine what they use and what they like about it and what they don't like about it, and to actually go look at what they're doing and see how they're using it. Because, the sales guy is going to paint a rosy picture and the brochure always looks good. It's like the pictures that the restaurants put on the menu of the food. It never looks like the lettuce is wilted on the burger there. So I think that I think that you're right. We need to have a very broad cross section of people involved in this decision, and it needs to be clear up front that we're not buying a system that's just for law enforcement again.
Right. Agreed.
So Rick, to answer that question, I think it should be this committee that, or a group of folks on this committee. We obviously have some smart people. We could obviously ask others that would want to take part in that decision-making process, but it all comes down to putting RFPs out and looking at what's out there. And as Jim said, we want a system that will integrate with the other systems that are currently functioning, because I would assume all the money that Hartford put into their system, unless again, it's being offered free by the state and then they don't have to maintain a system anymore, maybe they switch over. But we would want something and talk to the vendors about how it would best integrate not only statewide but with all these other potential vendors that are being used currently, and be able to look at all the bells and whistles of all the different, CAD systems that are out there. I don't know how many out there that have the ability to go statewide, but it can't be a crazy number. So, I think it would be our duty to analyze that, have meetings with these folks. They do presentations and ultimately come out with a recommendation of which one would be the best for us across the state.
I would go one step further than that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to throw out the Dispatchers Association has set up a demonstration for July 31st at 9 a.m. I believe it's Middle PD. I think they're also going to do an online version for Tyler CAT system. They've already done a presentation for Mobile Flex a few weeks back.
Okay. All right.
What association is that, Jim?
The Vermont Dispatchers Association. I'm not sure what their official name is off the top of my head. They're just pulling it all together now. The dispatchers, because we're having all these meetings with the task force, has gotten the dispatchers across the state fired up. So they're forming an association and starting to get active.
And what's the goal of that, Jim? Is the goal to provide input to the task force?
Yes, they want to be able to have a say.
Okay, all right.
So what I was going to say,
I wouldn't expect an RFP to come from that organization,
no.
or they're not trying to drive RFPs from individual dispatch centers, right?
They're just letting everybody know what's out there, and
okay.
Their primary goal is for training of dispatchers.
Okay, great.
So Jim and team, I have a task. I have an action item from another working group, from the Tier 3 working group, to find out more about the Vermont Emergency Dispatch Association. So I was going to give a call to Liz, because exactly what you just said and shared, Jim, is not being shared statewide. And one of the things that association would need is some administrative support. They cobbled this together. I see that they have I've done just a initial research into it. They have a page on their
Facebook page.
Facebook, yeah. I don't use Facebook, so it's not fresh in my mind. But yeah, they have a Facebook page. So I think it's valuable that they're doing this and that, people know that they could come and see these presentations. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they're putting it out across the board to all the people that all the dispatchers and various agency heads. So it is out there in the world, but it may not get the penetration that we'd like to see.
okay.
And just so you're aware, at the last meeting, I made it perfectly clear that members of that association should be coming to some of these meetings. I know Liz has come before.
What I wanted to say
And we
about
are setting up, Jim, sorry, Ron.
That's okay.
Jim, we're setting up some individual discussions coming out of the Tier 3 working group as well, with some active dispatchers as well to get some further input. And that's not necessarily on this item, but on some other items. So we are giving them an opportunity to have their voices heard. Go ahead, Ron.
What I wanted to add about the whole idea of, the whole, third option is that I think we're all on the same page that we need a statewide dispatch system. But I think another part of the emphasis of needing that statewide system is that I think we really need to be brave and simply say that this needs to be something that's funded by the legislature, because we have a real habit in Vermont of sort of trying to shift the appearance of where money comes from with the whole, no new taxes thing and stuff. I think that's great, but the reality is that this needs to be done. And if the legislature doesn't fund it, then, I don't know, Shelburne's going to have to pony up the money for their part of it, and they're going to pass the cost of that on to the people that they dispatch, and then they're going to send me a bigger bill next year, and then I'm going to hand that to my select board, and then guess who's going to pay for it? The same taxpayers that would have paid for it in the first place, except it becomes a whole lot more complicated to orchestrate the whole thing. So I think this is really critical, and we need to put it out there and say that not only do we need this, but this is something that the legislature is going to have to put their big boy and girl pants on about and figure out how to finance it.
I love that idea. Michael's got a question, and I have one after Michael, if I could. Go, Michael.
Rick, I just want to circle back to the whole Barb conversation. I was texting our dispatch supervisor, and I don't know if Jim knows this system, but apparently we're the only ones in the state that have an account with GeoLinks, and GeoLinks is how we receive the Annie Alley from the state. So we are getting it here, but you have to have an account, and that's how the state pushes that out from E911. So, again, kind of probably a secondary third-party system. You got to have an account. The town's got to pay for it. Dispatch center's got to pay for it, whatever. It's not full integration, but that's where, maybe some people have it, most people don't.
All right, that's good to know.
Mike.
I'm getting back to what Ron said about the funding, that the legislature should provide this funding. So this association, Michael, you have another comment to make? Oh, you put your hand out. Okay. So, I appreciate that this emergency, what they call themselves according to the website is Emergency Dispatch, Vermont Emergency Dispatch Association. And so they created their own association, and so I'm assuming there is a police. Well, I know there is a police association, a fire association, emergency management association. There's others. Those associations, are they funded in any way by the state? Does the state provide any funding to them?
Not to the associations themselves. To some of the functions that they take part in, yes. Like the Vermont, the Fire Academy gets some state funding, but the Vermont Firefighters Association was the one that pushed to create it.
Okay. Thank you for that
One
insight.
more point I would like to make. We've established that everyone on the call is certainly in favor of a statewide CAD and RFP to go out and purchase a statewide CAD. Of course, develop the requirements for all disciplines. I just want to point out, I think we'll still need a CAD, some type of CAD to CAD interface as well, because
Yes.
We know there's other CADs in use throughout the state that may or may not be picked as the statewide CAD, and even if those were to switch over, we'd still have the out-of-state dispatch centers that are using different types. There still has to be some type of CAD to CAD interface, I think, as part of that RFP.
Yes.
And is that, I think that's what's addressed back here in this core data transfer. Well, it's addressed both in option 2 and option 3.
Yes.
CAD to CAD interface. With the option 3 being, at least in my opinion, preferred, since it would not require call transfer.
I think you're going to have some problems on the not transferring calls. I don't,
Yes.
sitting in my dispatch center, having Lamoille or Hartford or wherever take a call, 911 call, and then just adding it into my screen and not actually transferring the call to me. Myself personally, as a dispatcher, I'd have some issues with it.
Okay. All right. Good. That's good input. So looking at these 3, then you would think option 2 might be more viable.
From my vantage point, option 2 is probably the best of both worlds.
All right. Any opinions, Ron, Michael?
I would agree with Jim.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Great.
I have a question on follow-up. If the state provided the funding for a universally used CAD to CAD, do you think we could encourage or convince other agencies that are using another platform to migrate over to that? Or
I don't think you'd be able to convince Hartford. When we were on Spillman, Hartford actually went their own way using the same vendor. The state had Spillman, and Hartford brought online their own system. The big issue there was, if I remember correctly, and some of the issues that I had in Shelburne, was we wanted to add modules capability that were available. When we brought mobile online, I had to go down to the Waterbury and fight with them down in Waterbury to allow us to add the mobile module to the Spillman system. Shelburne PD paid for that module for the entire state. And that's the problem I think Hartford was running into, and that's why they went their own way with the same vendor.
Are they with Tyler, or are they with Mobile Flex?
They're Mobile Flex.
Well, yeah. My question in that instance would be that if we decided to if we actually did go in the direction of having this be a statewide effort, and it was funded, and the subscriptions for support of all this stuff were paid for somehow out of the general fund, hypothetically, would they be inclined to go a different way, or was it they went in their own direction, but if the modules that they want are available in the direction that we're going, would they be willing to come along?
Maybe, but my thing is and this is just my vantage point from 35 years of watching the state. Sometimes the state decides to go off in a direction that we don't want to go off, or they don't want to do things that we want to do to advance for our police, fire, and EMS agencies out in the field. And that scares me, and that's part of the reason why Hartford stepped out of the state Spillman system.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
go ahead.
I think it comes down to, are they going to be saving money in the end if this, if they get rid of their system, switch over to the state, I
Sure.
would assume there's an ongoing expense to maintain their system. As a, for instance, we went to many years ago, the state wasn't offering a EMS electronic documentation system. We weren't going to wait around, so we purchased Zoll. That came with a lot of IT work and a lot of expense that we had to budget for. And then 5 years later, the state came out and said, "Oh, we're going to offer this electronic documentation system, and it's going to be free, and you don't have to worry about any IT costs or any servers or anything like that." And we switched over because it was a pretty significant cost savings. So at the end of the day, I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Well, and this raises the interesting question: should going forward there be some kind of a body that is tasked with keeping track of because we need to future proof this as well. If we go out and we buy a statewide CAD system and then we leave management to it, to something that's entirely formed of state employees within the Department of Public Safety or not, are we going to end up back where we started because the state goes their own way and doesn't ask anybody else, what the right decision is? So no matter what we do, I think, and that maybe that falls under the subject of governance.
That should, yes, exactly. It should fall on governance, and there should be various committees to address various items like this, like a technology committee, operational committee, et cetera.
Right. And we've gotten to the place that we have, because we did not have the input from any of the people outside of and outside of law enforcement.
Correct.
Well, I was going to ask you before you did, can this fit under the governance? I think it should. And of course, Ron, that's exactly what you said. And having worked with a number of statewide governance entities over my career, these decisions work best when made by a committee that is dedicated to this solution. And this is a key one. This is a foundational dispatching system, and we're also talking about mobile, CAD, and AVL. I mean, they would all fall into that realm, and I think I agree with your and Dom's statements that this would fall and be managed by a committee that makes decisions over the CAD and future additions to the CAD and enhancements to the CAD. So I think it fits there very well. I also wanted to say that a CAD to CAD system, say just as an example, the statewide system is using vendor A, and one or more users have a system B and system C. Say there's two others. Building the CAD to CAD interface is not always in the best interest of the vendor. They want to sell you their CAD, and there are not. The APCO has been working on CAD to CAD standards for a long time, and the vendors, there is no CAD to CAD standard that I know of, and vendors, just like in the land mobile radio industry, they needed a nationwide standard in order for them to provide interoperability between their systems. And that interoperability is only at the radio level. I mean, you can't match cores and base station equipment. So anyone that doesn't go with the statewide system, building a bridge to that CAD system would require additional investments. So if they didn't come over, if they didn't take the statewide system, they could still be islands out there. Just I mean, I've actually been in the National Capital Region. Televate did build a CAD to CAD platform that, defined what needed to be consumed by those who are on a different CAD, and wrote an application. I don't like that approach, because anytime one of the CAD vendors makes a change and a new version is released, it breaks it breaks the connection. So you got to go back, and you're always upgrading that software. And I don't like independent solutions like that. But those who had stayed on their islands, they'd have to build bridges to the statewide system.
Sounds like we may be ready to move on to the next. We've addressed those two items. Good discussion.
Before we go there, Dom, can we talk about, is there a separate on mobile CAD coming up, or can we talk about mobile CAD?
There is not, to my knowledge, a separate item on mobile CAD. So go ahead.
So can, right now, obviously we have, there are options. There are, for a fee typically the vendors do per mobile application. So, I mean, you could, configure your AVL, not AVL, you could, your MDT, to receive data over the CAD. So the CAD data could be pushed to your MDT. What are your thoughts on having that ability? Receiving the
I can
data.
answer that question easy. Back in 2004, that's one of the things that we were pushing here in Shelburne. We went out and purchased the Spillman CAD module, Mobile Flex CAD module, and we opened it up for the entire state. I wanted to see it, and the question I was asked at the time by the state, where am I trying to go? And I said, I'm trying to go where I can have that in every police, fire, and EMS vehicle. Because I really think it needs to be there. Whether it be police, fire, EMS vehicle, or your cell phone or tablet, whatever.
And how do you feel, Mike and Ron?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I think obviously, plan A, plan B. I mean, plan A would be like the Hartford system where, as soon as they're jumping in their fire apparatus, they open up their mobile units are already. I've actually went down there when we were trying to do some integration and upgrades at our dispatch. It's a phenomenal system. I mean, by the time they're jumping into the trucks, it's on their mobile display, and every piece of the information that they want, mapping, where they're going, all their times, everything, and any real-time updates are also coming to that mobile from the dispatcher, which also is a huge thing we're missing across the state. But that obviously comes with a bigger price tag with putting actual computers or displays in every apparatus across the state. One other solution could be, I forget the system that the state's kind of using now. It's like I am responding. Jim, what's the other system?
Active 911.
Yeah, there you go, Ron. Active 911. So one or the other system, and we went to I am responding over here. I felt it was a little bit more robust than Active 911, but that it's a cheaper solution that could be integrated into the CAD system that comes to my phone. Every responder, our entire team is on it. So as soon as that dispatch card is created, I get the information. And we have a lot of mapping solutions that go along with that to include seeing where fire hydrants are, seeing where AEDs are, etc., on the mapping solution in real time on our hands. The downside with our system currently is it takes the dispatcher to go on to Velcor to enter that information manually and then send an email that then is picked up by I am responding. So in many cases, unless the dispatcher is not very busy and is very good, we're many times getting that card, sometimes in St. John's, we're already on the scene before we're even getting that information. So in that case, it's not useful. But when it does work in the times that they get it out quickly, it is an amazing thing. And that's what I've been saying to Barb and state leaders across the state. Like that, as soon as an E911 operator in a CAD system enters that information, if a call's coming in right now, I'm getting it on my phone within seconds. And by the time we're already kind of getting dressed and out the door before the tones are even being generated. So that system integration, again, I think is key.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we're, there certainly should be a path to get there from point A to point B. Mobile data terminals and tablets and fire apparatus and stuff, they work in places like Hartford. They work in places like Burlington. They're not going to work so good in Alberg, where I can hardly use my cell phone. But that's not to say that things aren't going to get better. So, that it should be available for the agencies that have the capability to use it, and it should be, stuff like Active 911 and I Am Responding and various other platforms out there work to push those. Because one of the things you need to consider is that, at least in the fire realm, the vast majority of fire agencies are volunteer fire departments. And so there's not somebody sitting around the station to get into the truck to see that information. So it's nice to have that information pushed to people's phones so that they have some idea what they're up against before they, get out the door and into their car to get to the station.
Absolutely. It's a lot less expensive to give somebody access on their smartphone rather than a $500, $600 pager as well. If we ever get to a point where we have reliable cell coverage across the state as well. But the other thing,
Well, that's it. Go ahead, Michael.
The other thing to think about before I forget about it is EMD, real EMD integration into the CAD system too. And I don't know if that's a separate topic of conversation, but I know that that's another real piece of priority in my mind. And I know a lot of EMS agencies are looking for it. Essentially, the New Hampshire model, where I think they're using PowerPhone, and that's all integrated into the CAD system. We do not have a medical triage process in the state. You're relying on a dispatcher asking some questions, but there's no actual real flow of a medical triage process. And that, again, we're way back in the technology as far as medical dispatch triaging to get the appropriate resource and reduce license sirens, reduce urgent versus non-emergent. That's another kind of conversation, but we should think about that as far as the integration as well.
All right, good point. Thanks, Michael. Rick, did you get everything you need there?
Yeah, I'm going to give another action item to Televate. I want to get more information on PowerPhone and how that's being done. Because if that's, again, a solution that, that this working group is going to recommend be considered, I just want to be sure that we all know about it and we all, support it equally. I know that EMD is only supported by the two state, according to, I was just reading this.
The 6 PSAPs.
Yeah, only the PSAPs can do it right now.
Well, only the PSAPs are mandated to do it. St. Johnsbury Dispatch could do EMD if they wanted to, but they'd have to send all their dispatchers off to the training. So once they got the call, they could start doing EMD. The problem is across the state, most dispatchers have not been trained in EMD.
Right.
But also the EMD is not PowerPhone. What Vermont is using is not the same, it's not the same system, and it doesn't prioritize the response based on medical triage.
You're correct. The model that we currently use, the APCO model, was modified for Vermont but it doesn't have the triaging element.
All
The
right,
APCO model does have the triaging element. It's just we chose not to include it here
got it.
because we used to use Power Phone here. In fact, Shelburne, we were one of the first agencies in the state to use EMD, and we were using Power Phone. And I was actually, at the time 911 came online, I was looking at switching to APCO for the triaging.
So this
Oh.
conversation is really interesting to me because these are the kinds of conversations that, a committee, that is focused on this would have and would make recommendations to the governance committee that these are capabilities that are required and fun and how and then they got to figure out how to fund them. But these this just the fact that the knowledge base is only with a few people is concerning because that just shows that we're not having these statewide conversations, and then everyone is out there fending for themselves, which in the long run doesn't give us the right solution and actually costs a lot more time, energy, and effort to get a solution that could be adopted statewide. There's not efficiency in our process because we don't have one.
Correct.
And I'd like to say to support Mike's position on EMD. Last night I had an incident, or we had two incidences at the same time in this almost the same community. I'd already initiated a dispatch of an ambulance, which happened to have a paramedic on board. I made the determination to divert that paramedic to the second call because it was a call that would require a paramedic. My system doesn't tell me to do that. That's my brain telling me to do that.
Mm.
Right. And that's exactly it. And Jim knows this firsthand from receiving calls from E911. And especially right now, we have a lot of new dispatchers, and I think there's some issues with training, but also lack of experience that they need a better system to triage these calls and basically force them to ask the appropriate questions. Many of these dispatchers, while they have some training, they certainly don't have a lot of training on the medical side. And I feel like the power phone style kind of forces them down a set of questions that then again forces them to triage that call appropriately.
Do you think that that's something that this EMD certification for dispatchers should be, a fundamental part of their standards?
I think all dispatchers in the state should be trained for police, fire, and EMS dispatching. Yes,
I'd agree.
but that goes back to the tier 3 meetings.
Yes, right.
Mm.
Okay. I'm going to take a quick time check here. I think we're at 1:45 right now. When I'm in presentation mode, I can't see. So we don't have any members of the public, correct?
No, I don't
All
see
right.
any members of the public on this call.
All right, so we don't have to worry about
Public comment.
public comment. So if we can, maybe we can try and address one more item, and then we'll need to try and schedule follow-on meetings. So let's go on to the next item. Would be the statistic and reporting capabilities.
There is none.
Yeah.
Which
Right.
is
To your point,
literally the last meeting on the Vermont
to your point
Advisory, which
earlier,
was
right.
which was the whole topic of the meeting was how terrible the data is across the state and how difficult it is to capture this stuff without a statewide CAD system.
Okay, so to your point, this is definitely tied back to the statewide CAD system. There are a couple of options here. Develop and implement common statistical reporting capabilities. That doesn't go into a lot of detail as to what exactly that means. The option 2, create a regional data repository for agencies to share data. And option 3 is continue implementation of the statewide data lake. Is anyone familiar with that, the data lake as it's termed here?
Ron, do you have a question?
No, I had a comment before he started out on that the read there,
Okay.
and maybe that will make some of our stuff simpler. So I think that we are all on the same page that the direction we should be pushing and endorsing and cajoling and guilting the legislature into is a uniform statewide CAD system. And so I think that rather than have fragmented recommendations, we need to start with that and then look at a lot of this other stuff and basically say, well, if you go in that direction, how many of these other things just sort of get dragged along in the slipstream because they're all part of that? So if we're going to recommend that we do that, then do we really need to discuss at length a lot of these things, or do we need to just look at them and say, if we have a statewide CAD system, these are the other things we get, and here are the advantages to all of these things that we're going to get with this statewide CAD system, rather than giving them the a la carte thing where you get to pick this and that and the other thing and forget some of it.
Good point, Ron. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think so. So you see this goes along with that comment in terms of these are some of the this is one of the additional capabilities you would get if you pursued and implemented a statewide CAD system as you recommend.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to jump ahead real quick to the next one is regarding RMS, CAD to RMS. I'm not sure if this falls into that same category. There were some additional key insights and trends that MCP included in this discussion. You'll see those 3 bullets on the right. Law enforcement, RMS is the driver for Valcor. We all know that. We discussed that earlier. Most current CAD systems feed the call for service system. That means current CAD systems in the market today, not necessarily what's being used. And then the other one was stakeholder and end user reporting. The Valcor is limited in its statistical and reporting capabilities. So to your point, again, Ron, just earlier.
So before we comment on this, I would like to tell you and share with you that we have spoken to at least one law enforcement representative who actually is on the Valcor. I don't know what we call it. I'll call it a committee, a Valcor Enhancement Committee, and he thinks the Valcor RMS is the bee's knees. So there are some law enforcement agencies that rely on Valcor, and I think I just wanted to be sure that you're aware of that.
Well, I'm aware of that very well.
Having said that, I mean, what else do they have to rely on?
Yeah.
Well,
and he must be getting financially compensated to make that comment.
no,
but I think I think there are law enforcement that do, some strongly do like Valcor and some that just don't like Valcor in comparison to the old Spillman. But again, it goes back to he is speaking, or they are speaking as a law enforcement agency for themselves only, and they're not thinking about this as a statewide, multi-disciplinary public safety system that is going to meet the needs for all the fire agencies, all the EMS agencies, and law enforcement. And one thing I would love to see, and I don't know how statewide, how the CAD systems do this, or if they do this, is one big missing component that we see all the time when we have a law enforcement / EMS response, is so many times law enforcement is getting more information than EMS is, even going to as simple as car accidents. I mean, it blows my mind where you're hearing it on the scanner that they're getting more information than the EMS team is. And that, again, in a CAD system, if we had the mobile integration or the updates on our phone, that could be a simple message that is broadcasted in real time to everyone that is assigned to that incident, whether this is an active shooter or a motor vehicle accident with 2 patients ejected out of the car and unresponsive. So many times I hear it on the scanner that VSP is getting this information, and I'm waiting for it to come across on the EMS side. And sometimes it either is way delayed, right, or it doesn't even come across, because I think in some cases, the dispatcher prioritizes all information to law enforcement, even though it's really a medical incident. And again, that's obviously a training piece, but a true CAD system, I think, would solve some of that issues. Solve some of those issues.
Well, and I think it's pretty easy to illustrate, our case there in that, recently there have been a lot of events where fire and EMS people show up places, and there have been, bad actors involved, and a few of them are dead, and a few of them, ended up in the hospital. Having information, on warrants at a location or whatever before you knock on the front door, is in 2025, I think, not really an optional bit of information.
Agreed,
Exactly.
100%.
So I think this item here is something that would be captured in the RFP requirements for state to state or statewide CAD as well.
Yes.
I think we've got 5 minutes left essentially in our meeting. I guess I'd like to review in terms of action items. Right now, I guess I'll ask Rick, Elizabeth. They're all Televate focused at this point, right? So maybe we don't need to review them here, but we can review them internally. And I'd like to work on scheduling the next meeting or groups of meetings, looking back at the agenda here. Next steps, I think we're Televate to review the notes we have in our action items and prepare for our next meeting. But let's look to schedule the next meeting. First attempt would be similar times for similar day and time in subsequent weeks. How does that work for you 3 gentlemen?
It works for me pretty well. I will throw out that during the summer I am not available on Tuesdays, and most of the time I have a meeting on Wednesday afternoons that I have to be at. So other than that, I can be kind of flexible.
All right. Thank you. Michael, I think you had something coming up next week.
Yeah, I'm headed to Vegas tomorrow morning for our conference, so I would have limited availability next week, really, because I'm in conference classes all day. So Friday, I could definitely do next Friday if we want to plan on the same time, same day.
Okay.
I definitely have that flexibility. I'll be back by then.
Oh, great. Right. Jim, how does that work for you?
It works for me.
All right. All right.
It works for me as well. And when you said conference classes, is that conference classes or conference classes in quotes?
Well, it's really staring at
Well-
dead people for 5 days
Oh,
as a
man.
death investigator. So it's yeah.
Well, there are
can
some
I-
dead people sitting at the casino tables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Might
very close
integrate
to
some
it.
of those case studies.
Can I be so bold as to say we're going to try and schedule 2 consecutive subsequent meetings? So that would be Friday. Let's see, next week would be the 25th, and
25th.
then
August 1st.
August 1st.
Yep.
That would be great. I'd love to get it booked and on the calendar.
All right.
Does that work for
Elizabeth,
you too, Ron?
can you handle that, please?
Nothing would make me happier than to get this on the calendar and not have to send out another poll.
Yes, would agree.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I have
Thank you.
something to do like early morning on August 1st, but the 25th is clear at the moment, and like around the same time on August 1st would be fine with me.
All right, perfect.
So we're just going to stick to the same time on Friday because we all seem to agree that works for us. So we'll get a meeting invite out so that it's on your calendar.
All right.
Perfect.
Jim, I guess I'll hand it over to you for adjournment.
Okay, I just lost my email.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
All
Second.
right.
All right, very productive. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, bye
Have a great
everybody.
Have a great weekend.
All
You
right,
too.
bye-bye.